Hi, welcome to Awkwardly Awesome. My name is Regan, and I'd like to read something today that I wrote. I wrote it about a year ago, a little bit less. I originally just wrote it as an exercise in writing and to share with my friends. I liked a girl at the time, and I wanted to show her what I could do with a pen and paper. Um, it's a story. I guess it's kind of fan fiction. It's a story about Butters from South Park. After he's grown up, and these aren't necessarily. This isn't my story. This is, there's things in the story that people might think. Anyway, it's not my story. Some of them are my memories, and some of them are things that I've extrapolated from my own experience. But I've never really lived like this. The only time I ever lived even remotely like this was when I worked in the oil patch, and I had to live in a hotel or a motel. A man wakes up, I call it Butters, age 37. A man wakes up in a hotel room. His life has taken him from the bright boy with a fantastic imagination who wanted to impress his friends to here. It's not a very nice hotel. In fact, it's a motel. His efforts to deal with his childhood friends pushed him to a place where even in their absence, he became his own tormentor. He looks at himself in the mirror. The years have not been kind. He reaches for the paper-wrapped glass, removes the wrapping, and pours himself some lukewarm motel tap water. It tastes like chlorine and broken dreams. Dealing with a sexually confused father and a mother whose emotional extremes became impossible to ignore also left their mark, although it is not visible in the mirror unless you know how to see it. Holding the glass, he walks across the room and pulls aside the stiff, coarse blinds to peer out as the sun casts a pale and hazy light across the horizon. Lost in his thoughts, the glass slips from his fingers and splashes its unfulfilling contents onto the stained carpet. Hamburgers! The exclamation leaps to his tongue unconsciously. His action as he reaches for a towel are mechanical, the results of taking care of drunks since he was too young to have that responsibility. Not that he started drinking early. He waited until he was old enough to go into the store and flash his ID at the clerk before walking out with his 4-pack of pink lemonade vodka coolers. 21 years is a long time when you're thirsty. Like an automaton, he walks to the mini fridge and opens the door. 3 cans of Pabst Blue Ribbon mock him from the rack. He resists the urge to crack one and instead reaches for the block of old cheddar. The sharp smell of the cheese, mingled with a hint of mold that is evidenced by the whitish bits that have showed up inside the wrapper, bites him as he removes the plastic. His hands reach for the paring knife automatically and shave off the offending side before slicing another piece for himself. It tastes sharp, like a memory best patted over, wrapped up and put away. He hears the raised voices and contempt through the thin walls of his mind. Some things are best left in the past. Memories of cheap rooms and George Foreman grills interpose themselves upon the present situation. A wry chuckle rattles through vocal cords that have not uttered a sound to another human being in days. Things could be worse, he supposes. He turns and places the cheese back into the fridge without looking at it. 7 days. 7 days of torture. It was almost over. He can taste that malty hops flavor, and it is almost overpowering. He finds one of the cans in his hand unbidden, and the urge to bend that tab becomes unbearable. The metallic snap slams the walls of the room with a sound beyond the range of his hearing, followed by the hiss of the protective layer of carbon dioxide escaping. That old familiar smell enfolds him like the hug of an abusive lover as the can offers up its cold aluminum kiss. A sweet and yet bitter smell that recalls memories of fog and haze. The can wavers in its ascent, then stops altogether. It hangs there suspended by a memory before he presses it to his lips and draws that sweet nectar of forgetfulness into himself. Hey fellas, I'm still cool. Slips through his thoughts and out of his mouth as the cycle starts over again. We all have friends who aren't all right. We met them at a different time in our life, and along the way, in some cases, we just left them behind. Maybe they turned off the road that we were traveling on. Maybe they stopped in at a place that we didn't want to go. But we never went back and checked for them. You know, the buddy system means that you look out for your buddy. And I know I've been guilty of leaving people behind. People that don't have anybody, it doesn't mean that they forgot about you. Maybe they didn't even realize that what they were doing was hurting you. Maybe they didn't realize that they were coming across as a needy friend. You know, sometimes broken people just follow in the broken tracks that have been laid before them. And there's sometimes the only way out of that is if somebody gives you a hand up. Lots of people, you know, they burn the bridges by not behaving, I guess, according to the way that their friends want them to. But it's doesn't mean that they want to stay there forever. Never hurts to stop back and check in on a friend who you left behind. I already tried to shoot this once, and I ended up forgetting to switch my camera to video. So I ended up just taking a blurry photo of myself. So I don't know. I said a lot in the first what I thought was a video. But maybe it was a lot of just maudlin rambling and some bullshit. But people who are alone need people more than anybody else. You know, if you have people in your life and you take the time to reach out to someone who's alone, you elevate yourself and not at anyone else's expense. It's good to reach out and try to bring light into the world. And sometimes you have to go into dark places to spread that light. Because if you stay in the echo chamber of love and light, your light does no good. It's only in the darkness where it actually helps anybody. So, you know, if you spend your time talking about the, you know, what's positive and what's bright amongst other people who are positive and bright, and you don't reach out to the people who are living in the dark, your light is wasted. 5 candles together help less people than 5 candles spread out. I'm not saying that you should never come back together, because just like when you're sharing fire, when I was a child living as a missionary kid, or an MK as they were called at that time, one of the things we learned in the village setting was how to share fire. And if somebody comes to the fire that you have and asks for some fire so they can start their own, you never just give them 1 burning stick. You always give them 2, because 2 sticks held together are going to actually feed each other, and they're going to burn long enough for them to get wherever they need to go. to light their own fire. If you give them one stick, the only way they're going to be able to get a fire is actually if they can break off some charcoal from the end and set that together so that they can get the community of burning embers to light something else. That's really important. Community is so important. If we don't have community, then the feelings of loneliness and despair creep in really quickly. We're social creatures. We need each other. We need to be able to lean on each other, and because we're all broken in certain ways. I don't know anybody who's perfect. I don't know anybody who stands perfectly on their own and says, I never need anybody. The people that do are usually lying to themselves or lying to everybody else. And they definitely have their own struggles. Even if you're lying or telling pleasant untruths, it doesn't change the facts. The facts are that everybody needs somebody in their lives to help hold them up during the dark times. If you are somebody who feels drawn to share light and to bring light into the dark places, sometimes you have to leave your comfort zone. You have to leave the echo chamber where everybody talks like you. You have to go out where it's scary. You have to go out where people disagree with you, where people are willing to expose to you the things that aren't very pretty about yourself. I was once told that I had said some ugly things, and I'll admit the things that I said weren't particularly kind and uplifting. But when I go back and I read them again, because it was in a written message, I can't take them back. For one thing, what's said can't be taken back. And for another, as far as I could tell, they were true. Now, somebody who is asleep or has their eyes closed to certain aspects of their own life, if you shine a light into that part of their life, it blinds them and it hurts them. And they may recoil in anger, they may push you out of their life, but it doesn't change the fact that the truth flashed for a moment there. And they're never going to be able to unsee the flared after images that flashed across the retinas of their mind by that brief illumination. They may try to close their eyes to it again and discard you from their life altogether, but they'll never be able to forget that truth. Lies are easily forgotten. I mean, not when they're told to you and not when you don't get closure on them, but once you know something is a lie, it's gone. It's not worth anything. I have no problem telling the same stories over and over again when I'm questioned on them, because I try to only tell the truth. And it doesn't take any imagination or any effort to remember the fake story or remember what light you told something in when you're telling the truth. The truth stands on its own, and for somebody who says that they're sharing love and light, that's the only thing that they should be sharing is the truth. Just because the truth hurts somebody doesn't mean that you should withhold it. If you refuse to share the truth because you think that you'll hurt somebody, you're actually being condescending to them. You are treating them as though they aren't able to manage their own feelings. You're feeling their feelings for them, and you're withholding from them the divine nature of experiencing life for themselves. It's not kind. It's not kind to tell people what you think they want to hear. I mean, it's like living on cotton candy. At first it tastes delicious, but by the end of the day, you're kind of sick of it. And it's giving you a stomach ache, and you can keep on pursuing it because it tastes good in your mouth. But just like in the book of Revelation, John is given a little book, and he's told it'll taste sweet like honey in your mouth, but when it hits your stomach, it'll be bitter like gall, or vinegar, I think is what gall was. I couldn't actually tell you for sure, but I think it's vinegar. And they said, yeah, if you're told something that sounds good and makes you happy, but it hits your stomach and rots you, it's probably not very good for you at all. Your gut isn't going to lie to you about what's good for you. It might lie to you if you're afraid. If you're afraid and it says, no, I don't want something other than the cotton candy that I've been eating. I don't want broccoli. Broccoli sort of looks like cotton candy. It's puffy and it's got a fun color, but oh no, it doesn't taste good. But the difference between broccoli and cotton candy is you can eat broccoli all day, every day. Maybe not all day, but every single day you can eat lots of broccoli and it's never going to make you sick. It's going to help you in the long run. Your life is going to be better. Cotton candy, on the other hand, that's going to leave you toothless and sick, with bad immune system, bad joints, bad bones, sour stomach, and unhappy. It's generally unhappy if you're putting the wrong thing into your life because you think that's what tastes good, or you think that's what really does it for you. You're just going to end up ruining yourself. You're going to end up sitting at home alone, watching movies, watching other people pretend to live their life as you try to ignore the unfulfilling mess that you made of your own. Life is meant to be lived. We shouldn't hide away in a motel room, drinking away our problems, or staying in our rented room that's too small, that just reminds us of our solitude. That's not the best way to live our lives, and it's certainly no way to have a future. If that's your future, it's sad. It's a sad one. I have my own sad future that I'm currently living out. It's actually why I got off my ass today. It's been a little too long since I made a video, so I figured I'd get up, give my head a shake, and talk to everybody out in YouTube who wants to hear me. All 4 of you these days. I mean, I've got a few more subscribers than that, quite a few more actually than that. But if you go look at my channel, you can see the exact number. I'm not going to date myself here by saying what that number is, but it's less than I'd like it to be. I wish I was talking to more people. On the other hand, I've always been content to just have 1 or 2 good friends. And if I've got 4 good friends out there who are listening to what I have to share, I suppose that's good enough for me. I had a dream once. I had a dream that I was at a party. I was dressed all in white, which you guys have probably noticed. I took off the white t-shirt today, and we're coming up on laundry day here, so I figured a green shirt would be better than a stained white shirt. But when I had the dream, I made Johnny Cash look like a flower child as far as the colors that I wore. I wore nothing but black. I wore black underwear, black socks, black shirts, black hoodie, black pants, and I would do my best to wear a black hat as well. So when I dreamt about myself all wearing white, it was strange. It was very strange. But a while ago, I felt drawn to start wearing white clothes. And I'm wearing white pants at this time, and I'll throw on some white socks later. I might even switch into a white t-shirt later today, just because I do feel better when I wear white. But At that time, it was very strange to me. I was walking around. It was like a barbecue. There was a lot going on. There was a bunch of people there, and I was in a place where I didn't necessarily recognize. It was kind of familiar, but I didn't get it. And as I recall, people weren't wearing masks. People were smiling at each other, and there was just a sense of acceptance and love in the air. Um, I walked up onto the deck, and I stood there, and I knew it wasn't my deck because of the aluminum railing that was around the edge of the deck. I had aluminum railings like that on my house that I owned when I lived in town, and I didn't like it. It just had the prefab, cheap manufactured feel to it. I like originality, and I like more of a rustic nature. My house is too dirty for me to give you guys the 50-cent tour right now, but my house is pretty rustic looking. It's all built with logs, and it's I really like it. I didn't put the Anyway, I'm not going to get off onto my house. I knew this house that I was standing at wasn't mine because of the different features. I walked up, and I was moving around the group like a social butterfly, which also isn't me. Generally, I like to connect with one or two people and sit down and have long, in-depth, deep conversations that last throughout the entire party. And at the end of the party, I ended up only having to really associate with one or two people. That's how I enjoy spending my time. I'm not saying it's better or worse and that people should only do that. On this dream that I had, I was talking to everybody. I was walking around, making sure that everybody was having a good time, kind of being like the perfect host. Which I guess I used to do that when I had parties at my house in town. I'd walk around a little bit and make sure that everyone was having a good time. But I would still zero in on my one or two good friends and kind of hang out with them for the whole evening. But this time I wasn't doing that. It was during the day. It was bright. It was sunny, and everyone was. There was children there. It was quote, felt like a few families, and I didn't know anybody. That's the funny thing. I really didn't. I knew a couple people, but it was like being at someone else's party. The people who invited you, and then it's all their friends. But everybody here in the dream was treating me like I was their friend, and I just kind of rolled with it. I went through. I was talking to people. I think some people said they were gonna go smoke pot, and I told them to go ahead, but I had better things to do, and I didn't need to smoke any pot, which blew me away too, because I smoked a lot of pot, especially when I had that dream. I'd smoking 10 joints a day during the day, and then whatever else during the evening. Sometimes another 7 to 10 joints in the evening, just because I was really overdoing my cannabis use. But I went up onto the veranda, and I stood there, and one of my new friends, or I guess one of my friends, came over and asked me if I was going to join them because they went over to the neighboring place. And I said no, I was waiting for somebody. And I said they were going to show up here. They were going to be a few minutes, and then I'd be over there to see what was going on. So I walked over, and I started talking with another guy who, at that time, I had never met in my life. Another woman was nearby, and I spoke with them and called them my best friends. And I didn't understand why, because at that time I had never seen them before in my life. But we stood and we chatted for a while, and another guy came up and chatted with us briefly, and I greeted him warmly as well, and he was super happy to see me, but I didn't know who he was. After a while, this other person showed up, and they came over and they joined our circle, and the feeling of love and acceptance that I felt was so amazing and so perfect. During my times when I'm lonely, that's a big part of what carries me through and reminds me that life is worth living. Not that, I had my own struggles with suicidal ideation, wanting to kill myself. It was actually just over a year ago where I sat trying to decide uh, when to do it rather than if I was going to do it. And I gave up on that plan because I found that I had things to live for, I had people to live for. And since then, the quality of my life physically has improved a lot. Emotionally, there for quite some time, it improved drastically. These days, I've been struggling. That's why I haven't been putting out videos in the last couple of days. I've just been having a bit of a hard time. But I stepped up today. I sought spiritual guidance on how I should spend my day today, and I was told I should spend it recording. So decided to reach out and just take a minute here to share a little bit of my writing, and also just to remind everybody that we all have friends who aren't okay. And if we don't check on them, lots of times nobody will. And I understand that sometimes it feels like you can't help them, and sometimes you go over and they're just getting drunk or they're getting high. But if they haven't seen you for a long time and you show up, you might just be that little spark that reignites a fire of self-worth and love within their life and reminds them that there's a life outside themselves and outside their pain and misery. Because one thing I can tell you is not everyone who gets hurt or is hurt does drugs or drinks themselves into a stupor. But everyone who does drugs and drinks themselves into a stupor has been hurt. And ignoring them and casting them out and discarding them from our lives is not the way to help them back. Some of the most interesting people that I've ever known just get hammered all the time because somewhere along the way life hurt them and somebody let them down. And I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm saying when somebody lets you down, oftentimes it just takes somebody else to reach down and pick up and give us a hand to pick us up. People that discard us, they have their own problems. They're struggling their own struggle and fighting their own fight, and their lives probably aren't very happy either. Maybe that's why they discarded you, is because they weren't in a position to offer you any happiness because of their own miserable existence. If they discarded you, it's hard to tell because they aren't in your life anymore. Discarding people is an immature reaction, in my opinion. If you have to throw somebody away in order to feel that you've improved your life, it reminds me of an archaeological dig where people went in and started digging up Iron Age longhouse, or I think it was an Iron Age roundhouse or whatever. And within the floor, they went down about that far, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. And they started finding trash, lots of it, modern trash. And at first they said, what kind of garbage is this? Why are people littering here? And the conclusion that they came to was it was from children, school children, who had been brought there to study this site. And then they were brought into the roundhouse to eat their lunches. And they would just drop their trash everywhere. And they would kick a little hole and cover it up, thinking that no one would ever find it. But when people came back to study the site later, they found that the immature people had discarded rubbish all over the area. And they had just kind of made it into a place that wasn't very nice anymore. They'd contaminated the site with their immaturity. So if you have the desire to bring love and light into the world, to wake people up, sometimes the the people that were awake are going back to sleep because they don't have anybody around to keep life interesting for them. So it doesn't hurt to reach out and make sure that they're doing okay. I was once told that the lonely things that I shared and the sad things I shared were bringing other people down, and everybody was having trouble with it. But when I asked the person who brought it to my attention to apologize on my behalf, they said that no one had complained. It was just them trying to make me shut up. I can see by the timer that I set that I'm starting to run out of time on this video. So I'm just going to take a minute here and wrap it up. If you like my video or if you find it insightful, please like, share, subscribe, comment, click the notification bell, do all the YouTube things that help these videos grow and improve the algorithms and spread out so that other people can get the message as well. If you have a friend who isn't okay, check on them. Share a little bit of love and a little bit of light with them. Because if you're watching this, chances are you feel drawn to share the love and spread the light in this world. Light shared in a bright place is wasted. It's only when you bring it into the darkness that it becomes worth anything and able to actually help anyone who's lost. Take the time to reach outside of yourself. Step out of your comfort zone and help somebody else. I hope you all have an awkwardly awesome day. And just remember, God loves you, and so do I.